Hey, welcome back to the Spark Faith podcast. I am Dr. Chris Sargent, and I have such a treat for you. My only second male guest is on with me today. His name is Steve Werner, and I met him a while ago. We kind of saw each other for a bit, and I was following him. He's so inspiring. He is a former bond trader in Chicago, turned entrepreneur who literally changed the trajectory of his life at one point, and is so inspiring. We just kind of reconnected recently, and he sent me this amazing ebook called Victim to Hero, and it absolutely blew my mind. So we are going to talk about how we end up in victimhood, how we get out of victimhood, and how to make that fight time, or what I call bounce time, shorter, so that he has a whole way to do it. It's really calling on your inner strength to fight, to shorten that time between feeling like a victim and becoming your own hero. So welcome, Steve. I'm so excited to have you. How are you today?
Oh, well, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. And you're very inspiring to me as well. And I knew when we met 5 or 6 years ago, I was inspired for that weekend. So thank you so much for having me and for that amazing intro again. Appreciate it.
I know, it's crazy how life just has these weird undulations of people flowing and going, and then there's always a reason. Like, we didn't know why we met each other, but we did, and we inspired each other for a minute, and then was like off and back on. I love it. So tell me how you, where did this victim to hero, where did that start?
Well, what a great question. And thank you for acknowledging the ebook that we put together too. I've been a student of my own life for quite a while. I have literally rewound my entire journey and looked at my life very much the same way that I would
too,
look.
Right?
My wife too, yes. I'm very blessed with a beautiful wife. But I've studied my life very much like I studied the markets, the movement up and down, what it took to get from the beginning to the end of a particular trade. And I noticed that the ups and downs of life were very parallel to that of the markets. And in trading, we call those ups and downs noise. And the great traders were very skilled at compartmentalizing and understanding that noise was just part of the journey. And it kind of works that way in life also. But as you start examining your life and seeing the ups and downs, what I started finding that the downs, I set myself in victim mode. I felt sorry for myself a lot. I allowed myself to be fooled by stories that I was telling myself, and it kind of shaped my journey. Conversely, when things were going well and I felt very proud of what I had accomplished, I kind of became the hero of my own journey. And I decided to write about it and really design a program around helping people identify, how you can get quickly thrown into victim mode, but how, if you reconnect to your courage, you can set yourself into the hero side of that journey also. And I think one of the great ironies also is that when you fall into that victim mode, victims find their way into your life. The old cliche, misery loves company. Suddenly, yes. People would call me just to make sure I wasn't doing too good,
It's crazy, right?
Because they feel good about that, right? They don't want you to be in the hero mode. And when you get into victim mode, you get to feel sorry for yourself. You don't expect that much out of yourself. You expect people to feel sorry for you, and you come to the belief there's not much you're able to do. Conversely, when you start identifying that there's another side to that coin, the hero side, but you have to do the work to get there, turn on the courage piece, courageous people start finding their way into your life, because courageous people like other courageous people, and they start taking you places you never dreamt of before. And I analyzed this and watched it, studied it, and documented it. And it just illuminated. It became like true to life for me.
Oh, I love that's awesome. So you were bond trader, become entrepreneur. Is there a short version of that for all my
Yeah,
business
so
peeps out there?
no. I went to school out west. I'm actually from Chicago, from Skokie, Illinois, and I went to school at Arizona State University. And when I came back, I really believed I was going to go into my father's construction business. And then my best friend asked me to take a ride with him to this place called the Chicago Board of Trade. And I did. And when I saw what was going on, the controlled chaos, I came back and I told my dad that I had been to this place called the Board of Trade, and he pounded on his desk. He said, young guys are getting really successful there. What does it take to get started? And I told him, and he told me he would lend me the money to get started. And 60 days later, I was in the bond pit at the Chicago Board of Trade, the busiest, most active, largest pit in the world. 600 men and women in the area of a tennis court, pinned in like,
I
can't
even imagine. Yeah.
It was the greatest existence ever. I loved it. And I thrived. It fit right into my personality of competitiveness and discipline, all these attributes that I was able to kind of put together. And I had a wonderful career there. And then in the year 2000, technology took over very rapidly, and computers took over the human factor. And there was about 10,000 of us that had to quickly adapt and find an alternative way to make a living. I was 40 years old with a wife and 3 kids. And, people always said to me, how did you take the pressure of the pit? There's no pressure when you're doing great, making a lot of money and having fun doing it. When it all turns off and you have a wife and 3 kids and you have to reinvent yourself, that's pressure. So I did. I found myself as an entrepreneur and have been involved in a few different businesses since. I always say I had 19 and a half uninterrupted years as a bond trader of just success. And then the next 20 were, if I would have seen the script, I wouldn't have believed it. So yeah, a lot of great triumphs, some tragedy, ups and downs, victim, hero, all that great stuff. But what I learned along the way was you can't change your story, but you can change the way you tell your story. And if you do that, it can change the trajectory of your entire life. And you can tell a victim story, but within that victim story, there's a hero somewhere. And if you learn how to identify that and retell the story, it'll reshape your entire world.
I love that. And sometimes those
Thank
stories
you.
are just the things that we tell ourselves, right?
100%. And we're great at it. There's nobody better at fooling us than us. We're masters at fooling ourselves. Yep.
Right? Lie to ourselves all the time. All the time.
Yep.
All the time. Okay, so this is maybe a little bit off question, but where was your faith in all of this? And tell me a little bit about your faith journey, because I know you're all about mind, body, spirit right now. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I never thought about faith. When things were going well, I took credit for everything. When I got off the perfect ride, I blamed. I became the victim, and I blamed the world, the universe, God, whatever you want, however you want to call it, whoever you choose to call it. I call my faith the universe. I just do.
Okay.
But when after I had like a kind of the first tragedy I ever had in business, I lost a business in 2009 during the credit crisis. I was a partner with my younger brother. It was a masterpiece of a company. We were thriving and the darling of our industry. And then the credit crisis hit, and it evaporated, and it hit me very, very hard emotionally. And I had to change the trajectory of my life. And I started doing that. I unfortunately got on a lot of medications. I'm very transparent. I've told my story many times. I got medicated for depression, anxiety, what have you. And then in the year 2015, through the help of a good friend's son, who's a doctor, I decided no more. I was going to live free of medication. He convinced me that there was a world of, mind, body, and spirit that had been very cliche-ish to me, that was really powerful and challenged me to find it. And the fitness part and the mindset part were really easy. The faith part was something that I had always resisted. And much like everything else in my life, whatever I resist most turns out to be the key to my freedom. So I went on a journey. I went on a journey of finding faith.
Oh, that wonderful resistance.
Thank you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the wonderful resistance.
Yeah.
So that's cool that you found your faith. And tell me a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So as I was getting off all the medications, I was going through some periods of massive withdrawals, detox. I never knew that you can get addicted to medication that is prescribed by a doctor. I always thought addiction was reserved for crack addicts, drug addicts, what have you. And I found out the hard way. And through this journey, this very, very bumpy, turbulent 10 months, my friend said to me, "You're going to have to find spirituality." And I said, "Well, like, I'm looking under my bed, I'm looking in my closet, I'm looking in my trunk. Where do I find this, And I wound up on a winter morning. It was about 5 a.m. I went to a spiritual kind of recovery meeting, and it was in downtown Highland Park, the town just north of me. And it was much like the movie It's a Wonderful Life. It was snowing out like crazy. The snow was like piling up on my shoulders, and always wear an Arizona State baseball cap. And I couldn't find this address. And it was 5 o'clock in the morning. It was pitch black. I was upset, swearing at myself. And finally, I find this entrance to a building, a narrow hallway. And I go up and I walk in, and there's like people from all walks of life. Doctors, lawyers, school teachers, gym teachers, just sitting around. And they all had a book in their hands. And they welcomed me. They had no idea who I was. They welcomed me into this meeting. They handed me a book, and they said, "Here's the deal. We go around the room, we read a little excerpt from the book individually, and then we ask you to comment on what you read. Are you okay with that?" And I'm like, yeah, get moving. Let's go. Come on. I'm Steve Werner, I don't even know what I'm doing here. And it goes around the room, and it finally lands on me. And now I'm a little reserved, and I read this little paragraph or two, and they said, "Will you comment on what you read?" And I said, "Well, before I do, would you mind if I ask a question?" And the fellow that was running the meeting said, "Sure, go ahead." And I said, "Well, how do I know this isn't like a total scam, what you guys are doing here?" And they all looked at me like, "What?" And I go, "Have you people ever seen the movie The Sting? Like the big con, like you have God, you have the universe, you have your higher power, and you want me to believe all this BS? Like, And there was an old man on the couch next to me, and he looked at me, he said, "Son, why don't you just give what we do a try? And if it doesn't work, we'll just refund your misery." And my heart just sank. I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
Who knew to put this guy next to me? There's only one couch in the room. Everybody else is sitting in chairs, and I'm on a couch next to a guy that delivers that message to me. And when I walked out, I just looked up in the sky and I said, "Thank you so much." Like that message was there waiting for me. I mean, just teed up, like waiting for me. And from that point on, like I kid you not, Chris, like a light went on. And, people ask me what, like my faith or my spirituality, what it means to me. And my answer is things just make sense. Like right when I need things to make sense, they make sense. And I believe that I went through this journey of pain so that I could share it on platforms like yours and use it to make a difference in other people's lives. I truly believe that.
I love that. I hope y'all out there in the audience can hear how passionate Steve is about having and finding his faith, right? And we all know that it's a little bit different faith than what I have, which is all fine. This is the journey that people go on, and Steve is on this journey, and he's in. We're all still on a journey of figuring out all this faith and all these things. So I love the journey. Love it. Love it, love it, love
I
it.
can't
And I love your
remember,
resistance.
did I tell you my resistance to judgment when we talked on the phone?
No, but you know what? That's a perfect place to go, because in the beginning of this interview, you said that you are a student of life and yourself. And I think one of my mentors always says, be the student, not the judge. So let's go. Tell me about judgment.
Awesome. I have this in my intuition has always been my strong suit in my life. I have my kryptonite also, and Superman kind of Superman metaphor. I have my weakness. I've always been very judgmental of me, and I didn't want to believe it. And my wife and kids told me all the time that I was judgmental of myself in particular, and I can get judgmental of other people, and I wouldn't buy it. I resisted. So my wife and I were invited 2 years ago to Santa Fe, New Mexico, to a spiritual weekend hosted by a friend of mine who's business partners with one of the great spiritual women on the planet by the name of Caroline Meese. I don't know if you've ever heard of Caroline.
We all know Caroline.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So my wife and I flew to Albuquerque. We drove to Santa Fe to spend this spiritual weekend in Santa Fe. And my wife is admittedly not a spiritual person. The whole time we're on our way there, she's saying, I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it for you. And I'm like, don't do it for me. Do it for us. Come on, like, get into this. Look, we're in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Is there a more spiritual place on the planet? Like, literally, you're at the foothills. It's like super religious and spiritual looking. And we're in this beautiful, quaint little hotel. Go up into a room, and there's 100 people in a conference room, and there's Caroline up on stage. And she starts out the conference by diagramming on a whiteboard, much like the one I have behind me, what appears to be an apartment building. And she said, I want you to imagine that this is a high rise in Manhattan. And it's very conceivable. 2 people could live in this same building for 30 years. One is up here on the penthouse, one's down here on the first floor, live in the same building for 30 years, and they have totally different views of New York. The person up here sees Statue of Liberty, the Hudson, the skyline. The person on the first floor sees people, traffic, garbage. And she proceeds to say that she's been spending her life trying to get to the penthouse in life. She wants the greatest view of life, right? And I'm just drooling. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, this is spirituality. And I look over at my wife and she's texting. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Right? Like I tap her in the knee and she looks up and I go, texting, and she continues to text. And an hour and a half later, we're walking through Santa Fe and she says to me, what's the matter? And I said, well, you know what's the matter. Like, Caroline is, doing this amazing, thing on the whiteboard, and she's diagramming and like, you're texting, like, what, how can you text? And my wife looks at me and goes, how do you know I'm not just happy with my view from the 5th floor?
Wow.
And I go, what? She goes, how do you know I'm not just happy with my view from the 5th floor? She goes, you're always trying to get to the penthouse. And that's what I love about you. And that's what attracted me to you, that you won't stop. You want to get that panoramic view of everything. But I'm really happy with my view from the 5th floor. And it buckled my knees. And I'm like, oh my God, there it is.
Wow.
There's the tap on the back that I've been judging her journey. And I had to get here to have that happen and have that sequence of events and her deliver the message just like that for it to get through my thick skull, because I wouldn't believe it. And I just looked at her and said, in 32 years of marriage, that's the most beautiful, profound thing you've ever said. And yeah, I am judging your journey and it's terrible. Like I should not. And she said to me, would you mind if I just explored Santa Fe for the next few days? I really think it's beautiful. You go to the spiritual conference, do your thing. I know you love that. We'll meet up at dinner time and we'll just have a great rest of the weekend.
I
And
love that.
we did. Yep. And again, there it was, the resistance, the message, the delivery from the universe. And, when people ask me about spirituality, like it's difficult for a 63-year-old man to explain to other men that they're spiritual. Men just for some reason they're not as open. But there's the cliche, there's no atheist in foxholes. So
Yeah, right.
at some point, everybody is looking for God or the universe. It's a matter of when your time is coming,
I could not agree more. And yeah, I totally agree with that. And I love that,
And thank you for letting me share that.
oh
That was
no,
fun.
it's such a beautiful story. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions though. So do you feel like you release judgment of other people too at that same space? Okay, after our little technical glitch, I'm going to go ahead and ask that question about judgment.
Is there anything
So,
better than technical glitch though? That just means that we're human. So we all
oh,
we all have technical glitches.
seriously, not just our
Yep.
computers, right? Like
Right.
we all get them.
Yep.
It's when we land in victim, which I definitely want to talk about your whole document thing, but we're going to go to judgment and then we're going to talk about the whole victim to hero thing again and wrap
Sure.
that whole thing up. So, when you realized that you were judging your wife's spiritual journey and comparing it to yours, right? Do you also find, or did you also learn that you were probably judging everybody?
Yeah, that was the wake up call. That was it. That was the okay, thanks, like I'm big about evidence. Like if somebody says something to me that's controversial, show me the evidence. And there was the evidence. It was plain as day to me. Like I could deny it all I want, but there it was. Like, you know,
So how did that show up in your relationship with your kids?
I kind of surrendered. I
Yeah.
surrendered to the fact that I could be judgmental. And, you know, what's interesting is, we all have energy. And when you're judgmental, you are reducing your energy. You're not letting more in, you're resisting, which is keeping energy out. And when I got open to the idea that I could be judgmental, again, the trajectory changed. It's like I went from 38,000 feet to 60,000 feet because I use the word surrendered. I just did,
That's fantastic.
And
So
now I
let's
catch myself. Now I catch myself. If I'm being judgmental, I go,
where
hold on a second. You are being judgmental. Shut up and let this thing play out.
yeah. That's awesome. I love that. And I can only recognize that because I also have that in my past of being so judgmental about myself and so hard on myself. But what I realized and what was brought to my attention very similarly is that, okay, those are the standards you hold for yourself, but what you project is those same standards for everyone else, and no one can live up to that.
Very true. And you don't
Right.
get points. You don't get points for beating yourself up. The universe doesn't give you points. It gives you a
Nope.
lesson. Yeah, it teaches you a very rough lesson until you're in enough pain that you change.
Right.
And yep.
All right. So I want to go back to this victim hero thing. Love your story. And I think that helps people see, like, okay, wait a minute. Did this just fall out of thin air? No, you've been through stuff. Like
Yep.
you've had your own life lessons that have led you to write this great, great little ebook. So, if any of you out there are like feeling a lot of fear, anxiety, depression, which I know is at an all-time high since the pandemic, if you're feeling stuck, if you have resentment or just this unforgiving spirit, if you're angry, like, oh, poor me, I'm going to call it like I see it. That's a victim, right? That is all victim. So what's the first step in kind of figuring out how to get out of that and get unstuck?
Love the question. Love it. So in my world and in my coaching and training world, it's really, I'm a big believer. People will say the past is the past, right? Now that's true, but you can use the past as your navigational system for your future. There is so much there's so much precious history and evidence of what exists in your past, right? So what I did, I said this on the onset, I explored my journey and I went all the way back to my youth. And I started looking at those patterns of ups and downs that I saw victim, hero, victim, hero. And one of the earliest ones was when I was 13 years old, my parents wound up getting divorced. And we lived in this big, beautiful home. And I was the place where everybody congregated. And my parents were this, honestly, they were like this Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner, was that who she was married to? Type couple. My dad was a super handsome man. My mother was like Hollywood, like honestly, like Natalie Wood looking. And we were it. We were the bomb. And then they wound up getting divorced and everything fell apart. And my sister and I moved from this big, beautiful home into a 2-bedroom, tiny little apartment building with our immigrant grandparents.
Wow.
My father got custody of us, and he wanted to keep us in our school district. He took my parents from an older Jewish neighborhood in the city of Chicago to the town where we lived, got this tiny little apartment, and here we are kind of stuffed in there. And I'm angry, bitter, resentful, embarrassed of my whole life. I didn't know where to catch the school bus. I would often walk in like 3 feet of snow, trying to get to school. I didn't know where to pick the bus up after school sports and, get back to this apartment. And, I had this big, beautiful bedroom, and now I'm in this tiny little room laying in bed going, what did I do wrong?
Right.
And I told this story for decades about poor Steve, how his world was taken away, until one day I retold the story to myself and I said, oh my God, I had these loving immigrant grandparents that in their retirement years took my sister and I in. My grandmother always had a warm meal on the table waiting for us. We had warm beds to sleep in. If I was out with my friends at night, my grandmother would sit by the window in the dark and wait for me to come home. When I opened the door to walk in my room, she wouldn't say a word. She would just pull the shade down, walk into her room and go to bed, but she knew I was home safe. And that was the most important thing to her. And I started thinking about this, that it was the same story, but one way I told it as the victim of the story, and the other way I told it as the hero of the story. I got to live with my immigrant grandparents and I learned the value of $1 and how to help them and how to fend for myself and, just how to survive at 13 years old. And same story, but one way I told it as the victim and the other way I told it as the hero. And I started looking at all the stories throughout my life and going, oh my God, every time I'm telling a victim story, there's a hero hiding in there somewhere, and I'm going to figure out how to tell it from the hero side. And I started challenging my clients to do that. When they would come to me with their victim story and how miserable things were and how horrible life was, I would say, great, there's a hero in there hiding somewhere. You're a single mother, you're raising your children, like how heroic, you've never missed a day of work. You're advancing in your career despite the fact that, it's challenging, how heroic. And I taught people how to find the hero in their victim story, and that changed the trajectory of their world. And it,
Bravo.
has become a passion of mine.
Bravo. I love that shift of perspective, right? Like, I tell people, like, you have to find the gratitude, right? That telling the story from every person's perspective. How did your sister see it? How did your dad see it? How did your grandma see it? How did your grandpa see it? Like from all those different sides, instead of just us, like only I'm the only one, right? Just so focused on
Well,
ourselves.
listen to the way I say it, because I I actually love it. I'm actually proud of myself for the way I say it. And I hope other
Absolutely.
people say it like this too. You can't change your story, but you can change the way you tell your story, and that will change the trajectory of your life.
It will.
Yep.
100%, 100%. And when you can find those different perspectives, and who's the hero, where's the hero, how was I actually the hero of my own life in those moments? And because now we're looking at a 13-year-old boy, right, from a 50-year-old perspective, right? You have some other life in between that has allowed you to have a new set of eyes on that space. I love that.
63-year-old perspective, but thank you so much.
Well, I just meant like when you started this
A
whole
50-year
mission.
span, a 50-year span for
Okay,
sure.
we'll leave it that.
Yeah.
I love that. Um, you go through a little exercise on here, and I called the mirror drill.
Yes.
And I've seen this done in so many different ways. I think we'll talk about it a little bit, but I really want people to go and download this. So you're going to tell everybody where to get this document.
Yep.
But I think if all of you will go and really think through your stories and find those heroes, and then when you're in that space, you can ask yourself some of these questions, and it's continuing to ask yourself why on a multiple levels. Like, my life is falling apart. Well, is that the truth? Is it really falling apart? Because you may start out, oh my God, my life is terrible. Well, is it? What's actually terrible about it, right? Like getting to that truth space, right?
How about this question? Not only, what's so terrible about it, is that true, or is that what you're telling yourself?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And people go, oh my God, maybe it's what I'm telling myself. And the problem with that is now you've created an option for yourself. You can go back to the bullshit, excuse my French, story, or you've just created another road of the maybe it's what I'm telling myself. And if you get on that road, that may be the most beautiful part of the journey that's waiting for you, because the painful part is always there. If you want to go back there and settle there, you know what's there. It's pretty crummy, you know.
Right.
So the idea is to create the option and ask yourself, is that true, or is that what I'm telling myself?
Right. Yeah. Is that story true? Is it, and then also I think like finding, like digging into what's the actual fear on the bottom here, right? Like, oh, my life is terrible. I lost my job. Well, why does that make you feel fearful? Well, I'm not gonna be able to pay my rent. Is that true or false? Like just going through that why to get down to that space. And again, I don't want to give away the whole
No, thank you.
thing.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so step 2 is to know your story, right? Now that you have a different handle on your story, you can choose.
However,
You
which
have
way you want to tell it.
choice now. So, knowing your story, because knowing your story and how you want to tell your story can change the trajectory, right? This is where that change happens.
Or you can see the patterns. Every time I do this, I get this negative result. It happened here, it happened
Oh,
here, it happened here. How about if I stop doing that? And how about if I keep repeating the things that work, like stop pulling down the resistance or being more grateful? Like the gratitude piece for me, that was so foo-foo, like gratitude. Like, come on, everybody's into gratitude right now. And then I was laying in bed going, oh my God, it's like the only thing I'm not doing. So I start my day every day with a prayer session on my back the moment I wake up. I don't hit my knees. I lay in bed, I put my hands together, thank the universe for another day of life, pray for people that are ailing, or need healing. And then I do a short gratitude list in my mind to myself, and I jump out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I've already had, that's a big piece of my spiritual commitment right there.
I love that. So knowing your story and rewinding your story is the second step to this. And then I love this step number 3 is so, so, so important, because we really, we don't all have a go-to person. We really don't. We tend to go like well, women, ladies, you guys, maybe men may be different, but I know a lot of ladies poll people like, what do you think about this? What do you think about it? And what do you think about this? And what do you think? And what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? You know, and if we're out there polling, Brene Brown says when she goes out polling, she knows she's in trouble.
That's awesome.
Because she's not understanding her own mind, right? She's
Yeah,
worried about, sorry, go ahead.
No, she doesn't have confidence in herself, and she actually does. But you know, I did a live on this last week. Like, be leery of 2 things in people: the person that's always apologizing, or always feeling sorry for people, or the person that is always asking for approval. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? You know, when you're a trader like I was, you have a split second to make a decision. I don't get to say, hold on, Chris, let me think about it. Trade's gone, right? It's 1 split second. And that was a major gift to me, to be able to learn split second decision making.
It's such a great skill, but it also comes out of a place of confidence, right? And when we don't have that confidence, when we're worried about what other people think, and this is the place where I've had to grow through, worried about what other people are thinking about it, and needing their approval and needing their validation and all those things. I think that Jay Shetty said this in a recent interview, who I love. I don't know if you're a fan or not,
yes,
but he says he calls it oh shoot, it's his square partners. I think that's what he called it. But anyway, he takes a 1-inch piece of paper and writes the names of his true people on that piece of paper. Like, you don't have 50 people, y'all. You do not have 50 people. You have 4 at most, right? 2 names on each side of that 1-inch piece of paper. And that should be about it. Those are the people whose opinion really counts, right?
Yeah. In my world, that go-to person is a person typically with 20 more years of wisdom than I have, that's been along the journey, and I can reach out. They've probably experienced what I'm about to experience, or have, you know, or know something that I might not know. So I call it renting wisdom.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Finding somebody with who's just a few steps ahead of you. You know, they don't have to be a really super far. Like for me, I have a dear friend, coach, mentor, who has 2 daughters. And so when I have issues, like with my daughter, I know, like, and she has a daughter that's very similar to mine. So I can always just grab her and like, help. What do I, how do I handle this? And
yes,
she's that rock for me in those situations. And so, y'all, it's so important to find those people in your life that you really trust. It's one thing to have a great group of friends that you go out and you party with, or you have over for dinner, like all of those small groups. If you're in church and you have a small group that's really tight, that's amazing, right? But out of those people, you must find the 1 or 2 people that really can speak into you, that you can hear hard truths from, and that you can tell hard truths to.
Amen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's your step 3, right? And again, I'm not gonna go. He has a beautiful exercise that goes with this, so you can do that. And this actually kind of dovetails off of that, right? We become the 5 people that we hang out with.
Yep.
Right. So for me, like in my house are the people that I hang out with the most. 2 teenagers and a mom who has dementia. Okay. Right. So when I had this realization, like, that's not like people that do not have their frontal lobes all intact, right? Two
Yeah.
teenagers and a woman with dementia. Like those are not people that I need to be spending a ton of time with and that I need to be listening to a lot.
Very
So I
true.
had to go, right? I had to go outside and find those people because my head,
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I so crazy? Oh,
Yeah.
because you're hanging out with crazy.
Very true. Yeah. And from my perspective, for that particular piece, it's like I now look at the person and go, is that person taking energy from me or giving me energy? Right? Like if they're taking it, see ya. Like it's been fun. I've loved the relationship. Can't do it. Got to find somebody to replace. I need people that bring me energy so that I could be the best version of myself and serve
Right.
the people I want to serve.
And you do the same for them, right? You're bringing that positive energy to them.
I hope so. Yep, I really hope so. Yep.
Right, right. And
And if I
you're right,
show up if I show up
go
as a
ahead.
victim, I'm certainly not. Yeah. There's a lot of
Right.
moving parts to this puzzle.
There are. And one of the things that happens, we get stuck on, or we can get stuck in a place where, well, they're family and ooh, how do I, I mean, I just told you, two teenagers and my mom, right? Like they live in my house, but I do not have to, um, I don't have to let their energy in, right? I have my people, um, I have my people that I can go to, whether it's a phone call or a text, or we're going to go have coffee or whatever. Those are the people that I really let in, right? And sometimes I think that growth can be a lot more about shedding and letting some things go than adding in. We try to add
I
all
agree.
this stuff.
Yeah. And a great coach of mine reminded me that even family members have a shelf life.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could look right on the jar and say expired. Like,
Yep. Yeah, I adore my mom, and when I had my kids, we had some, we had our issues, and I
Yeah.
had to stand in my truth and love her dearly, but she's not my best friend anymore. We had a little breakup.
Got it.
Right?
Makes sense
Yeah.
to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, she lives with me. I take care of her. It's all good.
God
And
bless you.
then number 5, which is your signature. Your signature of Hour of Champions is physical, mental, spiritual, every single solitary day. So talk a little bit about that. Like we've already gone through some of it, but
Yeah, I don't want to polarize. I don't want to use my Hour of Champions. I don't want it to be polarizing to people. Like what my hour doesn't have to be your hour, but it
right.
does have to be an hour. And when I say that, I'm a stickler for, if you look at the clock, for me, it's typically, I start I have about a 7-minute prayer session in bed. That allows me 53 minutes left in my Hour of Champions, right? The next thing I do is I walk into my home office. I find something on my computer on mindset or something that I want to learn about. I want to nourish my brain. My brain to me is like a hard drive that is just like thirsty for information. So I'll find something on mindset training or something that really captivates me on YouTube typically. I'll program it in my phone and then I'm off to the gym. And while I'm working out for those 50 minutes, I'm listening to what I want to learn about. And by the time I'm done, I've got my mind, body, and spirit all in for the day. Somebody else wants to do 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the middle of the day, 20 minutes at the end of the day, have at it. But I believe you need to nourish your physical self, your mind, and your soul. I mean, I think that, you spoke a little bit ago about this major depression problem that we're having. I think that I have this phrase that I use, and it's, you can't cure a soul problem with a pill. And I think
So true.
that a lot of times we are mistaking what's going on up here for what's missing here. And this needs to be fed, needs to be nourished with, your heart needs to be nourished, and you need to get the good old fashioned way and explore, even if it's Google, if it's through a book, what do I do to fill up my heart? It could be going and doing a good deed for somebody first thing in the morning. It could be by, reading the Bible. If you're a religious person, in my world, it's all about holding the door for somebody, saying thank you to somebody that doesn't get thanked a lot, I was driving through the drive-through with one of my sons a few weeks ago, and I bought a coffee at Starbucks, and it was like $2.30. And I handed the young lady a $5, and I said, keep the change. And I drove away, and my son said, God, I can't believe you just spent $5 on a cup of coffee. And I said, I didn't. I spent $2.30, and I gave her $2.70.
Right.
I didn't spend $5. I gave it to somebody that's working hard, that needs, if 50 people give that extra dollar today, that person's whole world changes. And that fills up my soul,
I love that. Yeah, I think you are so on target with that.
Yep. Thank you.
So on target with that. I had a coach in the past that called it his hour of power, right? Power hour. It's our power hour and our hour of power. And that's part of it. It's gratitude for those of us who a lot of my audience is Christian, right? It's like digging into the word, it's digging into your devotional or formation journal or whatever you're working on currently in that space, but also taking some time to find some other input for your mindset. And that may or may not be Christian, right? I'm a Jay Shetty fan. He's phenomenal. And you can make those things fit your own beliefs, and it doesn't have to be all that. So,
and by the way, I have really bad news for people that don't have time, because I'm a voracious reader. I just am. I have books going all the time. One of my favorites, I don't know if you read, I'm sure you're familiar with Gabby Bernstein.
Yeah, Gabby's good.
I was reading Detox Judgment while I was getting the message about detox in Santa Fe, coincidentally. But the bad news that I have for people that don't have time to read is if you read 5 pages in the morning and 5 pages in the evening, that's 3,650 pages a year. That's like 10 good books.
That's so at least.
And anybody that doesn't have 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening is kidding themselves,
Right. Yeah, we all have time for that. We can make 30 minutes. We all have time for that. It's just like you said, you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. I get up someplace between 4 and 5, sometimes 5:30, depending if my evenings go. But absolutely, the very first thing I do after I take my dogs out, make my coffee, because coffee.
Gotta have it.
Is I sit down and I have my quiet time and I do my reading, and then I walk the dogs and do then I'm out, and then I take the shower and do the things. And y'all, that hour thing, that's 7 minutes of prayer. The 53 minutes starts when he gets to the gym. Not 20 minutes dinking around in your house before you leave the house, right? Like it's, it hits when that barbell raises, that's when the timer starts on that 53 minutes, right? Steve, am I right?
No doubt. And I'm walking out of there like with a heavy sweat. Like I'm going after it, I just am. I mean, there's no goofing around. Like you can make all the excuses you want. You got to do the work to get the results. You just do.
You got to do the work, whether it's mental, spiritual, or physical. You got to do the work. And the other, for people who are super stuck, one of the things that I found, and you may say something similar, is that a 3 to 5 minute dance party, y'all, 3 to 5 minutes, find your favorite 1980s best song ever. Come on, we all love the 80s.
Yeah.
And just get at it, and you will be able to find your gratitude, and you'll be able to find just a little more energy to find that spiritual connection and get to the gym, or walk outside. If you're going to walk outside and maybe you're not a gym person, fine, go walk, find some weights, do something, move your body.
Skip rope, jump, run in place, do jumping jacks, do push-ups,
It doesn't
whatever it
have to
is.
be expensive. A pair of shoes
Yeah.
doesn't have to be expensive.
I had a client say to me, I can't do 10 push-ups. I said, can you do one? She said, yes. I said, all right, do one 10 times. There you have it. There's your 10 push-ups. Just do
Yeah,
one
you
10
could do
times.
one today and one tomorrow and two the next day and four the next day. Like, our bodies are designed to become stronger, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We are designed to grow.
Well, you know, life is a battle. It is. It's precious and it's wonderful. It's beautiful, but undeniably, it's a battle. And you know, they don't send people off into battle that aren't conditioned ever.
Never. And so your sixth point, our fifth point is really about, you know, our spirituality, but your sixth point is give the gift.
Yeah.
So
That
talk a
is
little bit about that.
sure. That was actually taught to me by a Catholic priest, believe it or not. I'm Jewish. In 2009, when my world was crashing in my business, my brother asked me to please meet with somebody. He told me that the person he wanted me to meet with was a Catholic priest. And I said, wow, sure. Where'd you find him? And he said, he's dad's rabbi's best friend. They do a lot of interfaith marriages together. And I met him and he became one of my best, closest friends. He taught me the idea of self-love, and he helped me work through issues with a family member. And one particular instance, he said to me, you need to give him the gift. And I said, what's that? And he said, you need to hand him the truth. Like it's in a box with a bow on it. Like you need to confront this family member, but in a non-confrontational way, and say, this relationship has been causing me a lot of stress, and I'd rather that you had it, and hand it to them with a smile on their face. And when you do it with a smile, there's no blowback. And you know, I had to do it in business one time with a partner. I walked in and I said, you know, I'm going to shut the door, and in 30 seconds, I want you to tell me everything about me that you don't like. And he said to me, well, I can't do that. I'll hurt your feelings. We're too good of friends. We're business partners. And I said, well, in 20 seconds, I'm going to go first. So it's up to you. And yeah. And I went first and he went second, and we gave each other the gift. And it was incredibly cleansing and cathartic. And it's just a beautiful way to relieve stress. And I know from speaking at events, if I ask the audience, does anybody here have somebody in their life that's causing them stress or anxiety right now? Actually, that they're allowing to cause them stress or anxiety.
Thank you for saying it right.
Yeah, because you have to give people permission. Somebody can't cause you stress. Only you can allow them to give you stress. But when I ask the question, unequivocally, 9 out of 10 hands go up in the air. And the greatest way to rid yourself of that is to look the person in the eye with a smile and say, here, it's yours. I really don't want it anymore. And it takes courage. But the reason I know it works is I get a call every 2 days from a friend, a relative, a client who says, I gifted him, or I gave him the gift, or I gave my boss the gift, or I need to give my son the gift, you know. And when I hear that over and over, it's music to my ears. It works, and it's beautiful, and it's very unconfrontational.
Yeah, I love that. It's almost like the idea that Alcoholics Anonymous has about making amends.
Very much so. Very similar. Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it is. And forgiveness fits in there someplace, right?
I think you forgive yourself when you for letting yourself be consumed with stress and overwhelm, to tell you the truth.
You know what? I love this idea. It's a very nuanced principle that I think a lot of people do not understand. And y'all, if I'm stepping on your toes, I'm really sorry. But I think this is a piece of truth that a lot of maybe y'all don't understand, and that is that we allow other people to rent space in our head, in our heart, that maybe don't belong there. And we allow others, we allow circumstances to do the same thing in our head and our heart. We allow those things, and you're like, no, but they happen and I feel this way. Yes, those are all true things. That person may have actually hurt your feelings, and your response can be one way or another. Like, wow, that was the truth. Yes, that hurt. Ouch. Or, oh, poor me. And we go back to victim, right?
100%. You're spot
Okay.
on. Yeah. And, and conversely, we might deliver a message to somebody, and the way they receive it might not be the way we meant it. They might say, oh my God, I can't believe you're saying that to me. That was so hurtful. And you might say, I didn't intend it to be hurtful. I intended it to be truthful, and I can't help that you accepted it as hurtful. It was not my intention. And then it's their choice to be hurt or to accept it as truth, but it kind of clears the air. It really does. It's such a magnificent way to just bring truth to the surface, and creates a lot of emotional freedom, because we put ourselves in emotional prison a lot. We just do. We're under lock and key in emotional prison, and that's a really tiring place to live.
It is. It's exhausting. Yep. It's really, really exhausting. Well, what else would you like to tell everybody today? And we'll get wrapped up here. But I mean, this has been so much fun. This is great. Oh my gosh, such great wisdom, Steve. Thank you so much for this.
Well, really here's what I want to tell them. Number one, I love your Southern drawl.
Awesome.
Yeah. Easy. You picked it up. You. It's like a badge of honor. You've earned it. You're in a very enviable place right now in Nashville, where you told me it's 79 degrees or something like that. I think it's wonderful.
I know, and it's February, y'all. Sorry.
Yeah. No,
I grew up in the South. So actually, this is returning to home, and a lot of people don't really know that. But yeah,
I think it's beautiful. I really do.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I try not to be envious of too many things in my life, but I'm envious of 77, and I love that. It's so. It's really comforting. The Southern hospitality thing to me. I was in North Carolina a few months ago on a golf trip, and I said, please stop being so nice. You people are so nice. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. I'm telling you, when I traveled back and forth to Chicago, it's like you land in O'Hare and it's just like armor up.
Very good.
Like you just want to put on your armor, because nobody's moving, nobody's holding a door, nobody says hello.
Amazing. Yeah, like what did I do?
I'm like, I just got off the plane and everybody's angry.
Yeah. The other thing I want to say is you're really great at what you do. I love it. Like your professionalism, and I knew that when we met several years ago that there was kind of this cosmic connection, and it proves to be true. And I'm honored to have shared my story. And again, like I believe that I went through a lot of what I've gone through in my life and done a lot of soul searching, and I'm super introspective so that I could carry it forward and help people get to the same spot that I am. And I want them to find me. And the only way they find me is through the likes of, this magical moment right here.
Hey, thank you. I really appreciate your time. And that's something that nobody can get back. So time is our most precious resource. So I really appreciate your time. Tell everybody how to find you. Where do we find you? They want more of you.
Oh, well, thank you. You can find me at hourofchampions.com. That's my website, just like it's spelled. Not the hour, but our, HOUR, of champions.com. I have a free Facebook community. It's a private community, but anybody that comes through this segment that we just did, I will just invite in. There's about 4,000 people, and they're sharing stories and wisdom, and people have bought and sold businesses and made lifelong friendships and been on journeys together, all through the connection that we've created on Hour of Champions Facebook group, not page, Facebook group. When you're looking on Facebook, it says between 3,500 to 4,000 members. You'll know you're in the right place. If you just fill out the questions, I will let you in, and would love to have everybody there. And for anybody that wants the Victim to Hero playbook that we just went over, it's on the Hour of Champions website. And if it's not, for some reason, find me on Facebook and just message
We'll get
me,
it to you
and I will
somehow.
get it to you. Yes.
Yeah, I have a PDF of it, so I can also send it to anybody who needs it.
Awesome.
Thank you again. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything. I appreciate your wisdom and your time. Thanks.
God bless.
And y'all subscribe, love this, hate this, give me some feedback. I'm looking for feedback all the time to make
And
myself
share. Chris is doing a lot of hard work. Share, and share.
Thank you.
It's the only way it goes viral.
It's true. I need you guys to just, if you like it, share it with one other person, and we can get these messages out more. So thank you so much. Love y'all. Bye.